But I just want to put to you what Israel's explanation is. They say they are...
But I don't need to hear what Israel says. Can we center the discussion on international law? I'm fine with responding to any questions, but I would like the discussion not to be centered about what the government that is led by two leaders who are indicted for war crimes and crimes against humanity say. Let's pause for a second, Krishnan. 18,000 children being a regrettable outcome of war? It stinks as a lie. What do you understand by intent? What do people at home think that intent is? Something invisible, that it's in the heart of the politicians or the leaders? Or because I don't think that there is another case where the genocidal, the destructive intent is as obvious, as documented, as proven, as declared over and over as this one. Excuse me.
Strap in, folks. It's about to get legally spicy in here. Francesca Albanese, the UN sharp-tongued special reporter on Palestine, is revving up to a truth bomb on interviewer Krishnan in a class that's part courtroom drama, part heavyweight debate. Picture this, a packed studio, the tension thicker than a UN resolution draft, and Albanese armed with 500 years of colonial history receipts done with the oops, civilian casualties happen? Krishan's playing devil's advocate, tossing out the classic, but where's the proof of genocide curveball, while Francesca's frustration levels peak, counters with deadpan stats, 50,000 dead, Gaza flattened like a pancake, and a glare that could melt steel beams. Regrettable byproduct? Try genocidal bingo. She's gonna fire back, you'll see, citing everything from starved babies to ICJ. Grab your popcorn. This isn't just an interview. It's a masterclass in how to dismantle a war narrative, one international law clause at a time. Let's go.
So I want to ask you precisely about the legality of what is going on now, because Israel says it is targeting Hamas terrorists. And it says that anybody else killed is a regrettable byproduct of war. Now, what is the legality of what they are doing if they are indeed targeting people they regard as Hamas?
Let's pause for a second, Krishnan. 18,000 children being a regrettable outcome of war? It stinks as a lie. And let me tell you, 500 years of genocide have been, of settler colonial history have been supported by this kind of arguments, that there is always someone who's barbarians as a terrorist. Again, I do not want to downplay the risks that Israel has faced or might still face, but nothing justifies a genocide. And the destruction of life that has taken place over the last 16 months in Gaza, all schools, all hospitals, farming land, and most of the houses. What is this? Why did Israel had to do that? In another situation, would you call a state that hits intentionally and voluntarily hospitals, that starves an entire defenseless population, because this is what it is, would you call it an outcome of war?
It's your use of the word intentionally there that Israel disputes, isn't it? That they say they are not intentionally hitting civilian targets.
What are they
doing?
Are
intentionally hitting Hamas targets. So what is the legal? And that's how they say everything we're doing is legal. So what is your legal analysis of that?
Okay. The legal analysis is then, let's assume that it's a conflict, right? In a conflict, there are rules. And there are a principle of military necessity that Israel claims to have. Well, it is to provide evidence. It is to take precautions. It is to respect the principle of proportionality in every action it takes. How it's possible that in 16 months it has killed 50,000 people and leveled to the ground the entire Gaza Strip? Very little remains, not enough to resume life. Again, this is not the first time that a power justifies its action, its devastation, in terms of self-defense or in terms of an action motivated by annihilating the terrorists. This is not the point, but there are rules to spare life, to preserve the sanctity of life. And there are obligations. Look, again, this is not debatable. I mean, my intention is not to debate whether it's genocide or not. This is past. We have failed to prevent genocide. And it's not just me saying that. The entire human rights community, there is a wall-to-wall consensus that Israel is committing genocide. Like 2 years ago, there was a wall-to-wall consensus that Israel was maintaining an apartheid regime. And I take it that it's very sensitive for politicians to deal with it. But there are 2 Israeli leaders who are wanted for war crimes and crimes against humanity, including starvation. So even if we don't go to genocide analysis, why member states like the UK have not honored their international obligations to intervene and stop crimes, including because in January 2024, the International Court of Justice, 3 months into this military assault, had concluded that there was a plausibility of risk of genocide.
Okay, so let's explain your conclusion that this is genocide.
Yeah.
Because, I think most people think, well, it's not up to you to decide that this is genocide, it's up to a court of law. But so can you walk me towards your conclusion?
But that's not true. That's not true, because otherwise we would, okay, let me start from the beginning. So because I understand, look, I want to also talk about my journey, because I was not convinced at all that it was genocide. I've been probably among all special rapporteurs, I've been the most reluctant to use that term. And it has taken me weeks to do that, because and many Western people, for me, genocide was the Holocaust or Rwanda with very specific industrial characteristics. But let me tell you, genocide is not defined by personal opinions or historical precedents. What constitutes genocide is that it's established at Article 2 of the Genocide Convention, which defines the intentional destruction, which is intended as physical or biological destruction of a group as such through acts of killing, infliction of severe bodily or mental harm, or prevention of birth, or the creation of conditions of life calculated to destroy. And there is a limited, a quite scant jurisprudence, but very effective to argue that this genocide can be understood as the totality of crimes and actions that Israel has taken against the Palestinians as such. Because again, I understand that Israel keeps on saying, I've been targeting Hamas, but it's not true, because in fact, it has targeted indiscriminately the Palestinian population in Gaza. And let me give you an example.
When you say indiscriminately?
Yes. Intentionally, indiscriminately. Israel has very sophisticated military tools and very competent lawyers to know what is doing. They are doing this with the knowledge of what they are doing. And let me give you an example, a critical example. Since October, I've been documenting what has happened in terms of killing, destruction of hospitals, schools, this total siege that has been declared over Gaza, because let's not forget, on the first day after October 7, the former Minister of Defense, who's wanted by the ICC for war crimes and crimes against humanity, said we are dealing with human animals, and they will have no water, no food, no medicine, no electricity. This was already for many the expression of genocidal intent, and this leads to the application of the genocide framework. You know why I dispute what you are saying, which is the sentiment of many, so it's, of course, I understand, is that the Genocide Convention has 3 obligations: to prevent, to stop, and then to punish genocide. So the court intervenes on that last obligation. But how do we prevent genocide if we don't see that happening? And this is the question. We have already failed to prevent genocide. And really, for the benefit of your audience, I would like to say this is not my analysis only. There are over 30 special rapporteurs from different realms of international law denouncing this as genocide. The most prominent Israeli genocide historians and scholars have documented this and denounced that this is genocide. Amnesty International has put out a report of hundreds of pages saying that it's genocide. The reason why, I'm quite frustrated right now is that I spent the night looking at what was happening in Gaza, where 400 people, I've seen bodies of children being collected from the walls. I'm tired of seeing bodies of people hanging from the walls as you and I in our homes have our coats. This is to stop. Okay, even if you don't want to think that it's genocide, let's make use of what the International Court of Justice has said in January 2024. There is a plausible risk of genocide. Therefore, Israel must stop conducting the military assault as it's doing. It must allow humanitarian aid to enter. And a few months later, it has also reminded member states who have an obligation to prevent genocide, so they cannot use oh, but there is no court decision. Let me tell you, most genocides have been recognized as not through courts. The Aboriginal of Australia, the Native Americans in the US, the indigenous First Nation, Métis and Inuit in Canada. There is no court that has established that there was a genocide. And this is my fear. Here, we have the opportunity to stop it. And we are not doing that because we are debating whether there is genocide or not.
So come again to the question of intent. So you quoted, there are Israeli cabinet ministers who have said things that can be taken, as you've quoted, as genocidal intent. Or it can be argued that they are genocidal intent. Even last night, we had the Israeli defense minister saying that the gates of hell are opening on Gaza. How do you prove that that is and do you need to prove that that is the intent of the state, as opposed to the wild thoughts of individuals within it? Does genocide need to be proved by what has happened, by the reality, by the facts, or do you need to prove intent at the highest level, in other words, Netanyahu?
Krishnan, let me ask you, because again, I find this question big puzzling, but I understand that you come really from an honest and candid point of wanting to explain to people at home what is in the... What do you understand by intent? What do people at home think that intent is? Something invisible, that it's in the heart of the politicians or the leaders? Or because I don't think that there is another case where the genocidal, the destructive intent is as obvious, as documented, as proven, as declared over and over as this one. Excuse me, they have said it. I mean, they were saying, destroy the Hamalek, the mother, the children, the donkey and the camel, like 16 months ago. And now they're saying, open the gate of hell. And then it's not just the word spoken, which debatably could be an indication of an intent to destroy. The intent to destroy is not the reason why. This is a motive, and in international criminal law, this has another value. Intent is the determination to destroy, and it's made of intentions, clearly, but it's made of policy decisions, structures. There is a structure in place. There is a chain of command where the words spoken have been amplified at every chain of the Israeli army. And all the more, they have been enacted. This is why I say, in my last report, I was saying we need to understand what is genocide by not looking for the genocidal intent with the magnifier, because we wouldn't see that. We need to take a step back and look at this tapestry of crimes, the totality of crimes committed against the totality of the people as such. This is key. You cannot understand genocide if you don't take the perspective of the victims, those who are not seen as human. They are not seen as doctors, scientists, or bakers, or priests, or old people, or children. They are just these amorphous people whom are seen as a security threat, therefore have to be eliminated.
So how do international governments in the West respond to you when you make these arguments? Do they meet you, for a start? Do you get to talk to the people at the highest level of government in Western capitals? And how do they respond to your...
It depends. It depends. There are certain countries whose leaders have held a posture of willful blindness to the facts that have to be considered in order to make a legal determination of the reality on the ground.
Was October the 7th, the attack, an act of genocide? Or did it have genocidal intent?
I don't think so, but it was war crimes were committed against Israelis. There is no doubt about that.
So what's the difference?
The difference is the intent to destroy a people as such.
Is that not clearly what they were trying to do on October the 7th? So weren't they just killing anybody they saw?
Look at the interesting posture you are taking here. You are questioning me on whether 16 months of assault on a population where the 70% of the victims have steadily been women and children, from October 2023 to March 2025, the victims in Gaza have steadily been women and children, and still you ask me to give you the evidence of genocide. But
No. I'm asking you about what your analysis is of October, because you're very clear that what's happened after October the 7th is genocide.
Francesca Albanese isn't just talking, she's practically setting the stage on fire with her blistering take on the absurdities in this debate. While Krishnan drowns in legal jargon and double standard, Francesca emerges victorious. She's passionate, no holds barred rant slicing through the political BS. She calls out the hypocrisy, pointing out that when it comes to weighing human lives, words are just an excuse for inactions. And she does it with the humor and grit of someone who's seen too much to stay silent. Her fury perspective reminds us that when you're fighting for justice, you either speak up with a war or step aside, and she's clearly chosen the former. So if you're tired of the same old safe space excuses from our so-called leaders, join Francesca's call for truth and accountability and make your voices heard. What do you think? Are you ready to stand up against these double standards? Is it time we find out the truth since it's going on almost for 2 years? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and light up that subscribe button. Catch you later.